Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Bebop here. Today's video is going to be about each role in a mutation, what the typical roles are, and what you should really bring into them to make them a lot easier. Now, this will be basically set up for M3s, M1 and M2s. You can kind of do whatever, but if you want to have a good core foundation to any mutation, this would be it. I'm going to start with the tank, then I'm going to go with the healer, and then I'm going to go through the 3 DPS positions and 1 flex DPS, okay? Now, each role is going to have a little bit of flexibility to it. I'll start off with the tank. Here we are with the tank. Let's say we're setting this up for an ice mutation M3 wise, okay? You want to make sure you're 50% ice damage resistance. I'm 49, which is really close to 50, obviously. 50% is the cap on the elemental damage, so 49 should be just fine. I'm 10% resistance to all other damage types as far as elemental, the fire, the lightning, the void, and all that good stuff. I also have a shield on, which is giving me about 15% strike damage resistance, okay? Now, if you got in there in M3 and you thought that 1% maybe was getting you killed or whatnot, you can also throw another ice gem in your gear and you would be good to go. Here we are with a headpiece. I will start off for mutations and PvE, the Hive, that kind of stuff. Enchanted Ward, refreshing. You want to get 4 out of 4. I'm 3 out of 4 right here, so I would like to add another refreshing piece if I can. You can also add some sort of slash conditioning as long as you don't have the Frigid Dawn set. That's why I like the other sets besides the Frigid Dawn for PvE, because Enchanted Ward is the most important perk. Refreshing is very important also with the Sword and Shield because the cooldowns are really slow. And the conditioning, most mobs in the New World mutations are going to do slash conditioning, but you can vary this throughout each dungeon and what your sets are for. If you're going through the main part of the dungeon and a lot of enemies are doing slash or thrust, just throw on the pieces that would protect you from that, and then when you get to the bosses, you can throw on pieces that would protect you from that. Now look here, Void Dark Plate. Now if I'm a tank, I'll always put Sundering Shockwave on here because that is just so important to have on the armor. Sundering Clear Out would go on the hammer. The Thwarting Strikes and Refreshing Move would also go on the hammer. You can get the willpower from Tempest mutations, or you can get this Morgul's Maul if you want. Refreshing Move, hated Sundering Clear Out, whichever one you want. Both of them work just fine. And then here we go down to the gloves. I have Strike Conditioning on here with the Frigid Dawn piece. Here we are with the Azoth Crystal set. If I want to do Greatsword tanking, I have Enchanted Ward, Slowing Rupture, slow enemies, and that will help you do more damage to them or anybody over the certain dot on the strength skill tree or attributes, and they will do more damage to slowed enemies. There you go, that would help out. You can also have Relentless Freedom on your clothing if you're going to do Greatsword tanking. Refreshing 3 out of 4. And we have Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, and Relentless Freedom. I like to do a lot of Greatsword tanking, so I have those pieces on heavy and light gear also. On your shield, having Fortified Shield Rush for a tank is almost a must. Also, if you can go with some sort of shield ward, and let's say Strike Shield Ward, Thrust Shield Ward, Slash Shield Ward, whatever you need here, that will really is BIS. Okay, Fortified Shield Rush and some type of ward is just so good to help boost your resistances and mitigate a lot of that damage. Now I have the Butcher here, which is going to help you. If you don't do if you don't do Whirling Blade, then I wouldn't run this. I would run a sword that more or less has something like this. You can go to 725 and craft it if you want. Keen, Vicious, Refreshing Move, because you want to get cooldowns as quick as you can with the Sword and Shield, because it usually is slow. So now with the change to Whirling Blade in the heavy set, not adding the Rend, I'm wondering if the Butcher is no longer really the best sword for tanking. Now, here is my skill tree for tanking: Shield Rush, Defender's Resolve, and Upheaval. Upheaval has grit, does a good amount of damage, and helps lower your cooldowns 25%. Really, really good to have. If you feel like you want to have Whirling Blade to add some more weakening, then you can, and then I would definitely recommend going with the Butcher. If you don't go with Whirling Blade, then I would recommend you go with a different sword, something with some cooldowns: Keen, Vicious, to help you get more criticals, more critical damage, and get your cooldowns quicker. You want to be active as a tank. You don't want to just sit there and taunt and then turtle shell up. You got to be active. You would really only block if you needed to for some major damage, if the enemies are about to hit you really hard, or if the healer went down and you need to yell for help, help, I'm scared, healer down me, something like that, and then you get a Shield Rush to go ahead and get some Fortify. You can Upheaval, and yeah, you'll be good to go. Now I have the flail equipped here. Vicious, refreshing move, crowded bludgeon. If 2 or more targets are around when you hit that, 25% cooldown. That's pretty good. Flail's really good for movement. I have smite on there so you can get 30% fortify. It also weakens the enemies that come into this little circle. You have vortex here to unroot your teammates, to get them out of being rooted or whatnot, and to also help get you haste so you can get moving. And then you got crown of bludgeon to give everybody some fortify, and then also empower your teammates around, or at least one teammate around. I have the cunning heart room of stone form. This is going to help fortify you up. Really good. You can feel free to use this one or whatever you feel you need as a tank. Hammers, always keep a hammer on you if you're a tank. Also keep other shields on you, like this one, Shannon Ward. You know, if you use barrage, you can get this on your shield, / shield ward, in case I go up against a boss, say last boss in Glacial Tarn, then I got / shield ward. If you're a tank, have that in your sword and shield main tank. Then accelerated resolve is really good to have on your clothing somewhere. If it's on the shield, it's a lot stronger. Increase your speed 35% and your incoming healing by 14%. On your clothing, I believe it's about 8%. This shield right here, Fortify Shield Rush, Enchanted Ward, Thrust Shield Ward is just super, super good. That is another one for the, let's say, corrupted boss in a need, or any, you know, boss that might do some thrust shield damage. Last boss in Barnacles, something like that. All right, here we go with the amulets. Frozen protection. You always want some sort of protection here. And then divine and health as a tank. Increased incoming healing and overall health increased. Keen awareness is so important as a tank. You want access to more criticals. There you go. And then earring. This is going to be really good. Despise, regenerating. Both of them generate threat. And then, you know, refreshing toast can be good, or if you go fortified toast, that would probably be best. Okay. Now let me show you the skill trees for the tank. Now this is what I have for sword and shield. This is what I have for the flail. You can feel free to get rid of smite and go with barrage if you want, but that's what I have. And the hammer, I have that. Okay. This wrecking ball is so trash now. It feels terrible ever since Eternal came out because of combat change. Don't use it. Just go Sunder and Clear Out, Shockwave, and Armor Breaker. All right, let's go to Greatsword here for tanking. This is what I go with. Feel free to use this if you want, or another skill tree. You got Calamity, you got Roaring Rupture, and you got Relentless Rush. Remember, when you go into Relentless Rush, you will be in onslaught position, which means you will take 15% more damage. Get out of it as quick as you can. And as far as for tank attributes, what I always recommend for tanks is to go 300 Constitution. So you have grit on the startup of light attacks. Here, gain grit when charging and performing melee heavy attacks, and during melee light attack startups. And then I would just go the rest strength, because you want to empower your sword, your flail, and your hammer as much as you can. That way you can maintain aggro. If you want to go blood drinker and go lower con, that's fine, but you really want to be able to have as much grit as you can, because getting staggered by a bunch of mobs really can get you killed quickly. And the lower constitution you have, the quicker you can die. Yes, you can do your own damage and gain some health back, but that can also get you killed in an M3 unless you got a left clicking healer that is not on Void Blade. If you have a healer that is M3 level that is going to be on Void Blade a lot, then you are going to be really at risk to getting killed quickly, because the heals will only be about 250 focus instead of 300 plus, and you will basically need to be able to survive a pretty good amount of damage and try to fortify yourself and last as long until the healer can, till everybody, till the mobs are killed. Now, before I get rid of this, in some past videos, I've had people say, why you say round shield when you tank? No, if you're in heavy gear, tower shield, guys. Okay. Now, yes, for the best tanks out there, you can go kite shield and all that other stuff. I'm making this video for the average player or a new player getting into stuff. So please save your comments. But if you go here to change skins, I can do a round shield if I want to. And if it would actually work, you would see it looks like I have the round shield on, but it is a tower shield. Okay. So don't at me about, don't be telling tanks to go with round shields while they're tanking. It is a heavy shield, you ding dong. All right. The Transmog, welcome to New World 2025 here. Healers, let's go. All right, we're going to look at the life staff. Blessed, refresh and move, fortify sacred ground is usually what healers go with. Yes, there are variations to this, but this is basics. This is a basic video, and this is what you would want to strive for. Now, you could do the Fracture, which is going to be the new Void Gauntlet, which would be better than Life Taker. Fracture has refresh and move, keen. Well, I mean, this one's good too because it's got keen, life steal, refresh and move. And you can put a Stain Affliction on there, or, you know, Putrefying Scream, or, you know, whatever you really want to on here. Now, to me, you always want to keep a healer should always want to keep a Putrefying Scream Void Gauntlet on the side. Nullifying Oblivion one also, because if you go in Genesis, you want the Nullifying Oblivion to help get rid of some of the empower the soldiers have, because they just destroy. And then also Putrefying Scream to go ahead and disease up any enemies that are, let's say, vampiric, or that drop the healing aura when they die in mutations. So Fracture or Life Taker, either one, they work just fine. And let's go over the gear. If you are healing in mutations, AoE is the way to go for PvE. Now, you can also, if you wanted to, get rid of mending protection, let's say in the Hive, and go with maybe a single target heal. Let's say, like, can't think of the name right now, but Divine Embrace. And that way you can heal up the tank if they're in a big bind really quickly, but that's up to you. Fortified Sacred Ground on the clothing is a must. When you have it on the life staff and the shield, you will notice that on the clothing, it will show you it's grayed out. It's not going to work. But right as I switch off, it will be active, which means it would take over. So if you throw a freaking Fortified Sacred Ground and you switch over here to go ahead and start doing some Void Blade, you will still have the Fortify off your clothing active on the Fortified Sacred Ground and not the Fortify on the weapon. If you didn't have it on your clothing, then once you throw it down, you switch to Void Blade, there's no Fortify there, and your tank will take a lot more damage. Now we will go to the chest piece. I have Shuriken Fortification, which kind of sucks now. So Enchanted Warden Health is really the issue, or the perks here you want to pay attention to. On the gloves, I have Keen Beacon, which is a must for the healers. When Beacon heals a player, they gain 6.7% critical chance for 6 seconds. Now, if you wanted to get rid of the refreshing move and put on their Keen Beacon, that would be really good because it'll be stronger, obviously, on the weapon. And then right when you throw your heals, you can immediately go ahead and get to Void Blade. And if someone needs a quick hit, you can just boom, mini protection and get back to your Void Blade, okay? Let's look at the pants here. We got a Tune Leather pants. Now, you could go with Nibble Coat if you wanted to get your cooldowns faster, but that's up to you. A Tune Leather pants everybody can start out with, so that's why I included them with this build. Mini protection, 27% outgoing healing power for 3 seconds if orbit protection heals an ally below 50% health. That is really good to have on the clothing. Here I have Divine Empowered Frozen Protection, and here I have Hardy Sacred, which is a must on the ring for a healer. And Void Damage, because I'm going to be on the Void Blade a lot and I want more damage. Fortifying Toast, Refreshing Toast, Nimble. Nimble is really good for healers because they're going to have to move a lot. And Fortified Toast, 20% Fortify for 8 seconds on a drink, which is super good. If you want to do Healthy Toast to get you some health while you take a mana pot, that's fine. But I would say Fortified Toast would be the best. Here for the Heart Rune, you can go with whatever Heart Rune you feel comfortable with, depending on whatever you're doing. I included the Cunning Heart Rune of Stone Form just for, you know, if you need the extra Fortify in case enemies are going to you really quickly with the aggro. Oh, let's go with the skills first here. This is what I have. Doesn't mean it's 100% right. I'm not a main healer, so feel free to choose what you want, but the AoE heals are what you would want. Here, the Void Gauntlet I have right here. It is 4 abilities. That way, when you get done screaming at the enemies to root them, when you get to the bosses, you would change to Rupture, and that way you can have heals going out for people hitting the target. For the attributes, it depends on what you're doing and what you're comfortable with. But I would say 300 Constitution would be the most you would ever want to go with, and then about 50 Con or whatever you feel comfortable with. And then you really want to get to 200 Intelligence because you want the mana back on critical hits. Let's go ahead and get there real quick. 10% Manica on critical hits is really going to be excellent to help keep your mana up while you're Void Blading. You could go to 5% base damage while at full health if you wanted to here. Get these 2 dots. And also you want to get 25 strength, okay? Now, You could just go to 25 dex if you wanted to here and put the rest into int or con, depending on whatever you're feeling like. But that would be what you would want to go with here, the basic minimal requirements, okay? That's at an M3 level. Now let's go with the main spear, okay? Spear right here. This is the most important setup in a mutation. We're gonna start off with the spear. Enfeebling Skewer Spear, one of the most important perks in the game. Skewer hits apply weakening, reduces target's armor or target's damage by 47% for 8 seconds. Vicious and flame attunement. If you want to have a different spear, which is for the, like, let's say the Hive, Keen, Enfeebling Skewer, Vicious is really good, or you can do Enfeebling Skewer, Keen, and Disdain Infliction. But these are basically, you can get these out of any mutations, M1 and M2, and you can just save them for the M3s. That is really, really important. You need that on the main named enemies or the main powerful enemies, or let's say the soldiers in Genesis and M3, because they hit so hard. If you don't have a skewer on them, good luck. So please keep that on you. There needs to be a main spearman in each mutation lobby. And right here, Great Axe is key for mutations. To be able to group enemies, weaken them with Enfeebling Maelstrom, a nice AoE attack, Keen and Vicious for the extra damage. For the spear, main spearman, what you would want to go with is this right here. And feel free to vary if you want to. But I would always keep either... Yeah, I would just keep it like this, because that way you could switch off from sweep to cyclone on bosses or whatnot, or whenever you may need it. If you don't want to waste these two into this and you pick something else, that's fine. Maybe in the Hive you want to select this to get the extra 5% increased critical chance. That's up to you, but this would be for like M3s, okay? And that way you can sit here and go, okay, I'm going to be the sweep for CC. Obviously the skewer for your own empowerment and the weakening, and the perforate down the tree, which will add 30% weaken and 30% rend to the enemies. And then you can go bleed and sweep, and then for the bosses, cyclone, so you're not caught in animation. Now for the gear, it is a must to have, you know, obviously Enchanted Ward on many pieces you can get, but bleeding sweep is also a must for the main spearman. It's going to help add damage. I have this sandworm chest piece. If you don't have it, that's fine. Just go with Enchanted Ward and whatever else. Enchanted Ward, refreshing, and instability gravity well. Heal for 39% of the damage dealt with the gravity well. On hit, cast another 4 radius burst around you that deals 50% in weapon damage. Just another way to add more damage and health. Now I have attuned leather pants. And fortify perforate is, I think a must for the main spearman. You want to have as much fortify as you can, because you're going to be really in charge of going after the main most dangerous enemies around. Now, fortifying perforated chain of ward refreshing would be the best here, but just doing what I can. Now, for the spear, enfeebling skewer, vicious, and either keen or some sort of attunement. Keen, vicious, enfeebling maelstrom for the great axe. The main spearman's always going to have brutal heart rune of grasping vines. Rending vines is going to add rend and reduce the target's armor 20%. For 5 seconds, reduce your stamina regeneration for 50% for 5 seconds. So be careful about that. But with the spear, you always got great stamina recuperation. Wouldn't worry about it. Some sort of protection, empowered, and health would be better, but divine and empowerment, leeching, thrust, hardy, and empowering toast, refreshing toast, and nimble would be the earring you would want to go with. For your stats, for the most part, with being the main spear, you're going to go 350 strength, which will give you more damage because you're always spamming abilities with the spear. You'll go 25 int, and you'll go the rest dex. But you would say, well, the spear scales with dex way more. Well, you will actually do more damage based off this. 10% base damage increase to abilities, and the final attack in the melee light attack chain, which is only 2 hits, 2 light attacks with the spear. And since you're constantly doing abilities with this spear, you're going to end up doing more overall damage throughout the dungeon with this. Now, if you face a backless boss, or if you're in the Hive, then you would want to go 350 dex, because it'll give you more critical chances while empowered, and you're pretty much always going to be empowered with the spear based off the skewer. Then you would have the 15% critical chance while empowered. Okay, so you have to look at what dungeon you're running and what you're going to need. Also, you can switch to a set on a backless boss, which will flip your stats for you, so you don't have to go in here and change them. And that would just basically put you at the 350 dex, 25 instill, and then the rest strength. Okay, Let me go with the great axe here real quick, show you what I run here. Now you can feel free to change this as much as you want, but that's what I go with. And then the spear, that's what I go with. And now we will get to the bleed rapier setup. Okay, bleed rapier is second most important person to have in the group as far as DPS. Your main spearman being number 1, your bleed rapier number 2, because it's going to do the most damage. And if you don't have the bleed rapier, you will notice a big damage decrease. You can have a piece with omnidirectional evade in case you're evade bleed. If you go traditional Tondo, then you don't need this piece. Nimble coat is a must for the rapier nowadays with the recent nerf to the rapier cooldowns or whatnot. Nimble coat and the buff to getting these after level 50 on the PvP track. You must have nimble coat if you're going to go with bleed rapier. Okay, enchanted ward on the nimble coat. Leeching flurry, enchanted ward refreshing. I have enchanted ward shuriken energy refreshing, and then I have enchanted ward refreshing and slash conditioning. Now on the artifact rapier, disdain infliction, if you want to craft a rapier, refreshing move, disdain infliction, and keen tondo. If you're going to go like backlist bosses, let's say the Hive or the sandworm. If you're going to go into mutations, then it would be refreshing move, disdain infliction, and omnidirectional evade. Now since you're going to be 350 int, having the ice gauntlet, fire staff, that kind of things will be really good to use. If you're going to go into the Hive or the sandworm, you're going to be 350 dex instead of 350 int with the bleed rapier, but in mutations you will be 350 int. For the amulet, the bleed rapier must have empower on the amulet. Thrust damage here, hardy, leeching, and then empowering toast, refreshing, or if you could have empowering toast, nimble, and refreshing toast, that'd be the best. Now your heart rune's going to change depending on what your group needs throughout the dungeon. You could go with maybe a cunning heart rune of firestorm, or maybe whatever it may be. All right, you're just gonna have to see what your group needs and change it to whatever that would be. For the bleed rapier, let's go over the weapon real quick. That's traditional bleed. This would be evade bleed. Right here, this would be the evade bleed, so screenshot that if you would. And if you are traditional bleed, then you would go with Tondo right here, and then this. And with this selected, you would basically, it depends on if you're on a backlist boss, then you always do Tondo first, then flourish, and then a Tondo again, and then pop on 3 bleeds. If you have an evade rapier with you, all you have to do is stack 2 bleeds, and then you'll be able to pop them with the FNF. So most cases you're fighting enemies with back, so then you start off with flurry first, then you go Tondo, and then you will pop with FNF if you don't have to stack a 3rd bleed. The ice gauntlet I have with these skills right here. Definitely feel free to change it however you want and whatever you're doing. I don't really care for the ice pylon too much. It can be good to distract enemies or whatnot if you're trying to do a skip, but it can also pull enemies aggro off the tank onto the pylon and then right to you right after the pylon's destroyed. So you would have to be very careful when you use that. There's not a perfect setup for each dungeon. Everything changes all the time. You need to be flexible. So the main bleed rapier setup would be 350 int, 25 focus, and the rest dex, whatever con you feel comfortable with. Now if you go evade bleed, then you go 25 strength. Okay, and then you'll have omnidirectional evade on your clothing, and then you would have this set up with however much dex and con you feel comfortable with. Now let's go to the 3rd DPS role. This would be the great sword, great axe / evade rapier set. Okay, it's a flex DPS set. With this, you would have serenity, and what you would do is you would set your magnify to strength. Okay, you'll go 25 int, you'll go with whatever con you feel comfortable with, but you would basically, if you have serenity, you go 350 dex, because with the serenity you have trenchant strikes, but you also have trenchant crits. So you would go 350 dex, you could go to 25 focus because you want to have the cooldowns, and then the rest strength. Okay, whenever you go to the bosses, this would be for mobs. Let's say if we're running depths or Tempest heavy mob dungeons, you would have the great axe or the great sword and the great axe combo here to group up and hit big groups of mobs. So when you're swinging with the Serenity, the two side swings are going to hit a lot more enemies than if you just have a evade rapier. So it's going to be faster DPS. And then you will switch to evade rapier on bosses. So then how does that work with the attributes? All you would do then is switch your magnified to intelligence. You should have at least 25 strength, 350 dex, the rest intelligence, 25 focus. That is a perfect switch basically. And then you would go evade rapier setup. So what you would do here is set it up with flurry. You go evade. You can go here with riposte also. And that would be your traditional evade setup right here. Okay. And so then all you do is just, you know, evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack. That's all you would just do over and over. If you're about to take a big hit, you just riposte. Okay. And then you have a musket just to do quick dot damage and get right back to the rapier. Okay. And then when you go back to the main dungeon, you just switch back to your greatsword set. You come over here to attributes, you just switch it like that, and boom, we are back to this. Now, the greatsword here, Serenity, Trenchant Strikes, heavy melee attacks deal 23% damage, Trenchant crits, heavy melee attacks deal 30%, 34% more critical damage. This is what you want to take advantage of, mostly with the, Serenity. That's why you go 350 dex. 15% critical chance while empowered. You will be basically nonstop getting critical, especially with keen awareness on the ring, and you will be doing your most damage that way. If you prefer more to split stack, then you can do your own thing. Let's go over the gear real quick. What I got here is slowing rupture, enchanted ward refreshing. I got enchanted ward refreshing and health. I have the grab well, the enchanted ward and refreshing. I got the attuned leather panties. I got the light feet here with enchanted ward and health. I have frozen, divine, and empowered. I have keen awareness, hardy, leeching, and with the great sword, since onslaught position, you will be taking 15% more damage. Fortified toast, refreshing toast, nimble would be fine, or healing heart, or whatever you feel. But fortified toast is pretty much a must with the great sword. Okay, especially if you're going really low con, because that onslaught position can get you killed really quickly if you're not paying attention. Now, the great sword skill tree for the DPS would look like this. We'll select skyward. We'll select this. And then this right here, after dodging, gain 10% in power for the next 3 hits. This is exactly what you want to select. Attacks empowered by this effect restore 10% or 10 stamina on hit. And then you go with this. Hitting foes reduces great sword cooldowns. Charge heavy attacks 10%. That's what you want to go with here, and you just pick which order you want them in. But basically, if you get into onslaught position, which is this when the sword is down, and then you skyward, you're going to stack 3 rends. If you're in defiant stance and then do skyward, you're only going to stack 2 rends. So 10% rend versus 15% rend. All right, and then the great axe is also going to be helped to group up enemies. In this position, you could also flex to a hammer that obviously doesn't have hated, but refreshing moves and clear out thwarting strikes would be great. And that way you can provide some CC. If the tank is a flail / SNS tank, that can also help you too with rend and just CC overall if you go hammer instead of great axe. When I play with the great sword, I prefer to go with a hammer or spear because I need some CC, because Serenity will get you aggro like you don't damn believe. Oh my god, it's just you walk in a room and the mobs just want to kill you more than anything. I swear, it's weird. And then for the musket, when you switch over to the evade on the bosses, I have this skill tree. You can feel free to choose whatever you want, but that's what I go with. And if you're more of the accelerating traps type of dude, then you can go with the traps. All right, well, that pretty much covers everything for a M3 mutation. The tank, the healer, the DPS rolls with main spear with great axe, your main bleed rapier, and then your flex DPS from Serenity, and then to evade rapier. That is your main 3. This is what the best groups are going to be running in M3. If you are a DPS looking to get into M3s, let me know. I wouldn't mind teaching some people how to run M3s. Feel free to send me a message on Discord if you're on, let's say, Rosa server, which is US East, but I mainly play on Draco, which is a EU Central server, so I'm also on Nisa, but really I'm main Draco and then Rosa in the evening. Okay, so feel free to hit me up if you'd be interested in that. I wouldn't mind teaching. If you need any other videos like this, please let me know. Hopefully this helps you. If it did, leave a comment, let me know, or stop by my stream. I stream, you know, usually 3 or 4 times a week, and then I always love to have people come in and, you know, tell me what they think. Make sure you keep your right food on you or whatnot and everything else. So, all right, well, hopefully that explains everything, and then I will see y'all in the next video. Y'all take care. Later.